Hi, in this video we're going to be looking at still rate of change from a table. And remember we talked about in the last video that rate of change is a fancy way of saying the slope, which is your change in y over your change in x, which on a formula chart it's going to say y1 minus y2, x1 minus x2. And we talked about on a graph, we can just look at the rise over the run. But in this video, we're going to be looking at a table of values and finding out what is the rate of change of y with respect to x. Okay, so again, it's asking me for rate of change, which is just a fancy way of saying what is the slope of this data. If I were to graph these points and you looked at the line, what would be its slope? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to pick 2 points. You can pick any 2 points on the table you want. I'm just going to go with these first two. And I'm going to say, well, what is the change in y and what is the change in x? So to find the change in y and the change in x, you just subtract, right? So I'm going to do negative 63 minus negative 49. Notice I did negative 63. When you look in here, you can see there's a minus and then a negative, and you can see that there is a difference between them when you look at them on the calculator. It is important that we remember we're subtracting the negative 49, so you have to put both those symbols in. When I do that, I get the change here to be a negative 14. Now we're going to do our change in x. So negative 9 minus negative 7. And again, same thing, because I had the minus and the negative, I wrote them both in there. And I get a negative 2. So remember, your slopes are the y change over the x change. So my y change is negative 14. And my x change is negative 2. So my slope is negative 14 divided by negative 2, which is a positive 7. And there you go. Okay, let's try that again. Sometimes our tables are horizontal, but we're still going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to pick any 2 points on the graph. I'm just going to go, I usually just go with the first 2. Now notice my y's are on the bottom, so I'm going to do the same thing. 4 minus 8, the first one, minus the second one, 4 minus 8, and I get a negative 4 for my y. And then up here I've got, up here I've got a 10 and a 20, first one minus the second one. So the first one is 10 minus the second one is 20, negative 10. And remember, we put the y's on top. So my y change is a negative 4. My x change is a negative 10. So that's my slope, negative 4 over negative 10, which is positive 2/5. C is my correct answer here on number 2. Okay, let's look at the next one. Number 3. So here I've got the table for a stable that charges a flat amount plus an amount based on the number of hours of horseback riding is shown below. So I've got my number of hours of riding and my total cost. So if I ride for half an hour, it costs me $25. If I ride for a whole hour, it costs me $30, and so on and so forth. Okay, what is the rate of change of the stable price in dollars with respect to the number of hours of horseback? So remember up here in these, let's look at the first one, the rate of change of y with respect to x, and down here it is the rate of change of the stable price with respect to the number of hours. So the stable price is my cost, so that is my y value, and the number of hours is going to be my x value. Okay, so that's how I can kind of, and usually they're written in order like that. Okay, so let's calculate. Pick 2 points. I usually just go with the first 2. Find the change in your y and the change in your x. So it's going to be 25 minus 30, which is negative 5 for my change in y, and then 0.5, first one, minus the second one, is a negative 0.5. Negative 0.5. So then my change in y is -5, that goes on top. My change in x is -0.5, that goes in the bottom. So then when I put this in my calculator, -5 divided by -0.5 gives me 10. So $10 per hour of writing. Okay, let's look at, might as well write that over here just so it looks finished. Let's look at number 4. Okay, the last one. The values in the table represent a linear relationship between x and y. Oh, it didn't actually tell me to find the slope, but this lesson's on finding slope, so let's see if one of these answers is the slope. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to pick 2 points, look at my change in y and my change in x. So the first one minus the second one, -10 minus -13, and again, I've got that double negative, and that's okay. That gives me a +3. 4 minus 5 is a -1. My change in y goes on top. My change in x goes on the bottom. And 3 over -1 is a -3. So -3 is the rate of change or the slope when looking at y with respect to x. Okay, so hopefully that helps you using a table and finding slope. If you have any questions, please make sure you're reaching out to your teacher or your tutor. Thank you so much for watching.